Good morning, I'm Dani Laurel. It is Tuesday, the last day of March, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now, first on our agenda, effective today, Tuesday, March 31st, fuel prices are up for the fourth straight week. Shell has implemented a 12 peso and 90 centavo per liter increase for diesel, 2 pesos and 90 centavos for gasoline, and 2 pesos and 40 centavos for kerosene. Sea oil raised diesel by 12 pesos and 50 centavos per liter, kerosene by 2 pesos, while gasoline prices remain unchanged. Petrogas and Unioil also increased diesel by 12 pesos and 50 centavos per liter and gasoline by 2 pesos and 50 centavos. Jetty meanwhile hiked diesel by 12 pesos and 90 centavos per liter and gasoline by 1 peso per liter. This latest round of increases is still being driven by the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. As for the latest news, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to destroy Iran's key oil export hub at Kharg Island if no deal is reached to end the war. Trump also warned that U.S. forces could target Iran's oil wells, power plants, and other critical infrastructure if Tehran fails to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The threat marks a sharp escalation in tensions, raising fears of a wider conflict in the Middle East. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or the MMDA, has issued a draft of guidelines for a planned carpooling program designed to help commuters cope with increasing fuel costs. Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos has this report.
To save on fuel consumption and assist commuters, private vehicles will now be temporarily allowed to carpool. The scheme is expected to roll out after the Holy Week. But the question is, how will this work? Under the proposed carpooling guidelines, private car owners, companies, businesses, and government agencies will be permitted to offer ride-sharing services. The carpooling will be limited to point-to-point trips only. Roadside pickup or drop-off will not be allowed. Private carpools may only operate during peak hours, which is from 6 to 9 in the morning and from 5 in the afternoon to 9 in the evening. Only one trip per time slot will be allowed to any private carpool. Of course, there's a price for the scheme. Fares will be collected from passengers, but such will be regulated by the government. The MMDA and LTFRB are currently finalizing guidelines to determine which individuals and vehicles are eligible to carpool. The agencies are also seeking feedback from the stakeholders regarding this matter.
Sana hindi gawing for profit, or kung meron man, syempre kailangan din ma-recover yung pang-gasolina, pang-maintenance noong sasakyan, and then yung pang-parking niya siguro.
The carpooling guidelines are expected to be released by Monday or Tuesday next week, or right after the long Holy Week break. That is also when the registration process is expected to begin. This early, though, transport groups have expressed apprehension to the carpool scheme. This, they say, may be taken advantage by colorum or unregistered public transport. UV Express operators are also expressing concerns of lost income since competition will increase. Both the proposed carpool service and UV Express will operate point-to-point routes.
Hindi lang sa UV Express, maging sa mga jeep nga rin po eh. Sa totoo lang po, ang nagiging concern na lang po is how can we implement this to the extent that it would not compete with UV Express drivers, given po na napakataas na nga po ng diesel.
Authorities did ensure that safeguards will be in place to protect the interest of franchise public utility vehicles. Meanwhile, the MMDA appeals to carpool participants not to turn this into a regular business if they are granted special permits.
Huwag naman po sana rin, kumbaga makikiusap din kami ng DOTR, LTFRB, LTO, na wag naman pong samantalahin na pagtubuan ng sobra-sobra.
Meanwhile, President Bongbong Marcos announced that the newly opened Cavitex C5 Link Segment 3B will be toll-free until April 30. This 2-kilometer connector road between Parañaque and Taguig is expected to help motorists avoid congested inner roads. Marcos said the free toll will provide immediate relief by cutting travel time and reducing fuel costs. He added that the toll-free period supports the government's efforts to improve mobility as more travelers head out of Metro Manila during the Holy Week break. Toll collection on Segment 3B will start on May 1st with rates set at 38 pesos for Class 1, 76 pesos for Class 2, and 114 pesos for Class 3 vehicles. And as more people choose buses to save on fuel, the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange is expecting heavier passenger traffic this Holy Week. For the latest at the terminal, we go live to mobile journalist Evan Tarinque. Evan, kamusta ang sitwasyon dyan sa Pitex?
Dani, as of this morning, nakita natin na mas marami yung mga pasaherong nag-aabang doon sa kanilang mga gate dito sa PITX compared kahapon. Pero ngayong umaga kasi, itong entrance na to, kanina, ito makikita nyo, dumadami muli yung mga pasaherong dumarating papasok ng terminal. Pero so far, kita natin kanina, yung mga ticket booth, medyo may volume na rin, yung ilang mga waiting area dito sa loob ng terminal, kumapal na rin yung volume ng tao, dahil nga expected na a few days bago yung Semana Santa, doon magsisimula magsiuwian yung mga kapatid natin from Manila sa kanila mga probinsya. Kahapon nga, Dani, nagdagdag na rin ng mga additional bus trips yung pamahalaan ng PITX para nga ma-sustain yung volume ng mga tao na dumadagsa dito sa terminal. Pero kasabay ng Dani, kahapon kasi, napag-alaman nga ng terminal officials na merong 8 bus companies yung nag-charge, nag-overcharge ng singil sa kanilang pamasahe. Kaya naman nabigyan na yan kagabi, nilabasan nila kagabi ng show cause order ng LTFRB at binibigyan sila ng 10 days para sumagot kung bakit sila nagtaas presyo. Pero kung hindi man nila masagot yan, posibleng kaharapin nila yung suspension or cancellation ng kanilang Certificate of Public Convenience na napaka-importante para sa mga bus operators. Dani?
Evan, to clarify, yesterday when we talked to you, sinabi mo nga na parang nag-increase yung pamasahe from, I think, 1,100 by 700 pesos, something like that. And sinabi mo na nga may show cause order ng 8 bus companies. Ano ba yung dapat na patakaran ngayon? Talaga bang walang increase at all compared to pre-Iran war levels or 1 month ago? Or pwede bang mag-increase, hindi lang ganun kataas?
Alam mo, Dani, nagkaroon kasi ng provisional na nilatag yung LTFRB na pwedeng magdadagdag. Pero sinarado kagad yan ni President Bongbong Marcos. So wala munang fair increase sa lahat ng mga land transport vehicles sa ngayon. Gaya nga ng mga buses, jeepneys, pati mga tricycle. Kasama yan doon sa pinagbawalan na magtaas ng fare. Kaya naman yung ilang mga pasahero, nagulat dahil nga 600 pesos, 700 pesos yung dinagdag dun sa kanilang the usual na binabayaran ng mga bus tickets. Kaya naman nung tinanong natin yung terminal officials, nakaabot na nga sa kanila yung ganitong kalakaran at nailapit na nila sa LTFRB. Kaya naman yung LTFRB kagabi, naglabas na nga ng show cause order laban dito sa walong ito. Kaya naman ngayon, inaantay natin, naghahanap tayo ng ilang mga pasahero na baka hanggang ngayong araw, kahit na may show cause order itong 8 bus companies na ito, tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung kanilang overcharging. Dani?
For the mga pasahero and commuters, meron ba silang hotline? Just the same with the oil prices, 'di ba? You could report kung meron bang increase in fare na dapat hindi tama sa panahon ngayon. Ano pong magagawa nila pag ma-witness nila ang ganitong sitwasyon?
Alam mo dito, Dani, sa PITX, kung maka-experience yung mga pasaherong ganyan, pwede silang lumapit dito sa may main entrance. Ito, kasi sa likuran ko, ito yung info desk ng terminal. So, pwede silang lumapit dyan at isumbong nga kung ano-ano yung mga bus companies na nagtaas presyo or nag-overcharge sa kanila. Yung DOTR din and the LTFRB, nagsabi rin sila na pwedeng lumapit sa kanilang mga ahensya at isumbong nga yung mga abusong mga bus companies, lalo na din sa fare hike, dahil nga bawal na bawal yan at walang fare increase sa ngayon. Dani?
Alright, thank you for clarifying that, mobile journalist Evan Tarinque. Now, despite the rising fuel prices, many Filipinos are still heading out of Metro Manila for the Holy Week. And with that, expect heavier volume across key expressways including NLEX. Let's check the situation on the ground with Mobile Journal Francis Rivera. Francis, traffic ba ngayon?
Good morning, Dani. And ngayon, nung dumating tayo dito, talagang ganito pa rin yung sitwasyon. Tuloy-tuloy yung daloy ng trapiko. At as you can see, wala pa naman tayo nakikitang pagbara at wala pa rin tayo nakikitang paghaba ng pila. Actually, humahaba lang naman yung pila para doon sa mga naka-cash late. Pero dito, no, sa napapansin natin, parang nagbukas sila ng 3 to 4 lanes ng cash lane para nga mas tuloy-tuloy yung daloy ng trapiko. At dito sa NLEX, no, ay merong programa na pinapatupad yung biyaheng arangkada kung saan may mga services na ino-offer para doon sa ating mga kapatid na motorista, ano, at isa na nga diyan yung mga libreng free towing. Kung saan kung nagkaroon man ng aberya ang ating sasakyan, libre na nga daw ang towing yan at dadalhin yan mismo sa pinakamalapit na exit ng pinangyarihan or doon sa mismong naging site ng aberya, no? At meron din silang mga first aid station at ito Dani, marami na rin kasi gumagamit ng mga electric vehicles, so meron din silang mga EV charging stations at mga free basic mechanic services at marami pang iba. Yun nga, no, ang paalala nila, kung sakaling magkaroon man ng aberya sa daan, sa magiging biyahe ng ating mga kapatid ng motorista, wag na magkatubiling tumawag sa hotline na 13500. Dani?
All right. Thank you for that update. I'm curious to see paano ba bukas kasi holiday na, no? Tapos aalis na yung mga tao half day from work. So for sure, mas mabigat ang traffic tomorrow. Maraming salamat, Mobile Journal Francis Rivera. Now don't go away. We will be back with more stories after this short break. Good morning, I'm Dani Laurel, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. The country's average oil supply has risen to 50.94 days. That's from 45 days, according to the Department of Energy. Latest inventory data show gasoline stocks increasing to 59.78 days from 53 days, and diesel supply inched up to 46.93 days. That's from 45.82 days, while kerosene reached 107.88 days compared to 98.93 days previously. Jet fuel posted the greatest improvement, climbing to 62.69 days from 38.62 days in the last report. Meanwhile, the first batch of 1.04 million barrels of diesel is expected to arrive in the Philippines next week. Executive Secretary Ralph Recto said this followed successful so-called oil diplomacy led by Energy Secretary Sharon Garin and her agency. The government is also exploring partnerships with new supplier countries to diversify sources, thus including Argentina, Australia, Brunei, Canada, and Colombia. And the Philippine peso has fallen to a new all-time low against the US dollar. It closed at 60 pesos, spot 69 to $1 on Monday. That's weaker than last Friday's record of 60 spot 55 centavos. This decline comes as global oil prices continue to surge amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. And traders say the peso's weakness is driven by a stronger dollar, higher oil demand, and thin market liquidity. They also warn the peso may test the 61 level with volatile or choppy trading expected. With the peso hitting a record low and oil prices continuing to surge, what does this mean for inflation, businesses, Filipino consumers? We're joined by economist Ronilo Balbieran from the University of Asia and the Pacific. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, Doc Dani.
Prof, answer me, bababa na ba ang presyo ng oil? Kasi naman, fourth straight hike today. But then again, you have all these fresh supplies, more than 1 million barrels. Are you happy with this? Are we going to feel the impact of this supply somehow?
Again, law of supply and demand lang naman, no? So at the right price, supply will come in, and at the right price, demand will go down. And siguro, perhaps kaya nag-i-increase yung oil inventory natin is because we have actually reduced our demand for oil in the last few days, the last few weeks,
Okay.
no, because of high prices. No? So, over the next 3 to 6 months, I think, no, with all these new sources of oil para sa atin, no, and the countries that you mentioned a while ago, I think that the price of oil will start to go down, no. So again, may I remind everyone na before all this mess, the problem of the oil producing countries is global oversupply, no. So in short,
Okay.
namumroblema sila, sobrang dami ng supply sa buong mundo na they had to cut back on their production, and they had to debate whether to produce something more, no, in January or February. So after this particular conflict, no, hopefully naman matapos na ito at walang nakakaalam kundi si President Trump lang, no. So but I think as soon as this stops, no, the conflict in the Middle East stops, you have 3 to 6 months for it to fall right before the pre-war level.
Okay. So, that's one side, no, the pump prices. Medyo matagal-tagal pa yon because as you mentioned, there's this ongoing war. But just for energy, security, and just being able to do our day-to-day things, wala nang crisis. Tama ba? Pwede na bang sabihin yon? Na walang energy crisis, may supply na.
Eh, may challenges pa rin, no? So for example, in relation to what, no? In relation to the 1970s, no, oil is causing all the energy mix, no. So more than 70 to 75% of our energy requirement is produced by oil. But right now, we are actually 30 to 33%, and we can expect, no, with this blessing in disguise, we can actually bring it down to 25%. No? Everybody's buying their electric cars, everybody's trying to install solar panels, those who can actually afford it. And so, I think after 6 months, no, I think we have sufficiently bought a lot of solar panels for our houses, then tried to actually reorganize our life in terms of less demand for oil. So ito, demand and supply lang naman eh. So there's not enough oil for unlimited demand, no? But we have but after restricting our demand and actually pivoting, and tinatawag nila ngayong green pivot, no? So everybody's trying to pivot towards clean energy, renewable energy. In fact, even yesterday, no, I was talking to logistics and transport sector, so they are also accelerating their efforts to get into, for example, hybrid delivery trucks, delivery vans. So this will really help in addressing the situation, or the oil crisis kung tinatawag, or oil emergency from the point of view of our government.
Okay. And Prof, so these solutions that the DOE is pushing for right now, diba? We're importing from Russia. There are talks to import from Argentina, Australia, Brunei, Canada, Colombia. When before this, 98% came from the Middle East. How will this impact? Is this a good thing? Is this something that we should be continuing moving forward para we have diversification of sources? Or magmamahal ba ang presyo because Middle East oil is, historically cheaper?
Well, the answer of all economists is it's the price, no? So at the right price, we should be able to actually plan ahead. And in fact, the biggest lesson here for our country is for our government to actually have its own strategic reserve.
Correct.
No? So I'm not an advocate of abolishing the oil deregulation law, but yung lahat ng mga countries that have their government having their strategic reserves have actually moderated the increase in
The
the price
impact.
of oil. Remember, the international price of oil in 2022 was higher than its international price today. So paano nangyaring sumirit ng todo price of oil in our country today than in 2022. And the answer to that is
Okay.
everybody speculated on the oil supply over the next 2 to 3 months. And so we scared ourselves to death. And so everybody went to the gas stations, tried to order more oil. And so that has actually increased our demand more than what we actually need. And therefore, the price of our oil really shot up. No? So if you have a government that has a huge amount of strategic supply, and then they can actually threaten some of the speculators of oil prices. Don't speculate or I will unload these strategic reserves. That's the beauty of having a strategic reserve. I think moving forward, I think the government may want to consider having its own supply. I mean, they are doing it right now. They're trying to order on their
Yeah.
own, so to help in the securing of the supply. Why not later on? Because of this particular crisis, we have learned our lesson. The biggest enemy is speculation and scaring ourselves. And a huge strategic supply by the government is a great weapon against speculators and scaring ourselves.
Well, that brings me to the question, no? The only reason na we even have the supply was because there's an executive order and the Congress passed special powers to the president. Of course, that's not supposed to be the case, diba? There's an oil deregulation law, it's supposed to be laissez-faire. Diba? It should be the petroleum companies doing this, not our government negotiating
Yes.
contracts. What's your thoughts on that? You said that this is a good thing to do. Is this something that we should consider even beyond this crisis?
Kasi yung supporters ng abolishing the oil deregulation law is all about subsidizing the price, which actually led to a huge amount of negative revenue for our country, for our government. No, so it is never a good thing to regulate price. No, so because regulating the price will result in you achieving the opposite of what you want to achieve.
Okay.
So, but a strategic reserve is a strategic reserve. For example, the reason why our exchange rate is not hitting 63, 64, 65, 70 is because the speculators cannot actually speculate on the depreciation of the peso. Why? Because the BSP has tons of dollar reserves. So it can just threaten. It may not actually use its reserve, but it can actually threaten the speculators. Don't speculate on a 70 pesos per dollar exchange rate because I will unload my reserves and you will die. No, so that's also, I think, the beauty of actually us trying to adopt that kind of strategic reserve. And many countries around the world have actually their government having that oil reserve without actually using it, just by saying,
Okay.
don't do it or else
Okay.
I will release this. Then you can actually pacify price increases.
I very much appreciate your analogy on the forex reserves to the peso, no, and the oil reserves to the oil prices. Tell us more on your thoughts about the peso reaching an historic seventh low in 1 month, and how much further is this gonna go until, as you mentioned, the BSP could step in, or is there a floor because of the reserves we have?
Well, to begin with, we're supposed to be hitting 61 with the magnitude of the trade deficit that we
Okay.
have. No? Kasi, again, law of supply and demand, we are actually importing more than what we are exporting. No? So to the tune of more than 3.7 trillion pesos trade deficit. We have only 28 trillion pesos in our annual revenue as GDP. No? So that's more than 10% of our entire country's production is actually imports, no? So in terms of trade deficit, net of exports na yun. So, and if you have a current account deficit in 2025, our exchange rate should be actually be correcting it, correcting our behavior of too much imports towards a 60, 61, towards 62. No? So to actually level the playing field in terms of imports and exports. Now comes the oil crisis, then it's another pressure for us to actually welcome another 61 or 62. So our exchange rate should be hitting around 63, 64, 65 already. But
Okay.
because nga may strategic reserves ang BSP, no, so we cannot everybody, the banks, the traders, the dollar traders that hold the dollar supply cannot actually just speculate and earn so much profit out of speculation. So that's
Okay.
why we have this particular exchange rate.
So cushioning the blow there. I have one final question, Prof. No, very quickly, how long should we have these price freezes before other sectors, diba, like the transport, the bus companies are saying, okay, we really need, there's people still rallying on the street for itaas ang fares ng transport. We have the agricultural sector having a price freeze still. How long should this be in place before, of course, people start feeling the impacts of not being able to, translate the fuel costs into their own prices?
I hope this will be this will be for a short term. No? So
Okay.
because freezing the price means that you are actually disrupting the whole price mechanism to correct behaviors. No? So what's important here is actually supporting the low income families, the public utilities. So if we are to introduce another set of ayuda just like a pandemic level, no? So parang around 5,000 to 8,000 per family per month, I think that's the more important thing, no? To support the low income families and the low income businesses that is being affected by this, no? I mean, having all these price freeze will actually not just kill our public utilities, no, because they cannot adjust. No, they cannot adjust their prices and they cannot charge, no. So yung mga jeepney drivers cannot actually go kasi for every distance, for every kilometer they cover, they actually earn negative, no. So I think it's more important to shift towards subsidizing low income families, yung mga fuel subsidies or discounts to fuels for public utilities. And more importantly, I think the government should be focusing now on disbursement of the infrastructure agencies of our government, because wala na tayong magagawa dito sa price increases na to over the next 2 to 3 months. What's important here is for our families to have higher income to absorb the price increases. For me, if you're asking me, I am more worried about the higher disbursement rates of our government agencies than this price increases in oil. Because having more income to absorb it is the way,
The answer.
better mechanism for us to absorb it, because for more than 80% of our economy that has surplus money, they can absorb it. But how about the around 20% of our Filipinos who cannot absorb it? We need to give them more money in the short run and make sure that they have more jobs, especially through our government infrastructure jobs.
That's a great point there, no? Construction pa lang with the infra, ang dami ng jobs na ma-generate. Maraming salamat, Economist Prof. Ronilo Balbieran from the University of Asia and the Pacific. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, as we know, the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or the MMDA, has released a draft set of guidelines for the proposed carpooling program aimed at helping commuters cope with the rising fuel prices. The MMDA said they may open the carpooling program to private vehicle owners as well as companies, factories, offices, and government agencies. Under the proposed rules, carpooling will be limited to point-to-point trips during peak hours, with roadside pickups prohibited and only one trip allowed per time slot. MMDA General Manager Nicolas Torre III told 1PH sa Totoo Lang that carpooling is only a temporary solution and should not replace or compete with legitimate transport services. That implementation is eyed for after Holy Week.
Hindi po natin gagawin ang carpooling na ito para kompetisyonan ang mga existing franchise holders. Maliwanag po yan.
Okay.
Hindi natin kukumpetisyonan at babawasan ang kita nitong ating mga legitimate franchise holders or mga negosyo or mga serbisyo na merong kaukulang lisensya at prangkisa galing sa LTFRB.
And joining us now to discuss this is Attorney Ariel Inton, the founder of Lawyers for Commuter Safety and Protection. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dani. Good morning sa lahat ng ating mga taga-subaybay.
Attorney, your thoughts on this proposed carpooling program of the MMDA? Feasible ba yan? Is this something that's good for commuters or is it confusing to you? Tell us your thoughts.
Well, our group has been advocating carpooling even before. Matagal na po namin itong ina-advocate because of the hardship of commuters taking public transport. No, kahit hindi pa ngayon crisis, dati pa sinasabi na namin, kailangan meron tayong regulation sa carpooling. No? Dahil sa hirap sumakay. No? Ngayon, ang nagiging drawback lang yan is there let's say people, no? Vehicle owners na sinasamantala at ginagawa ng kokolorum na. And we know very well that in our country, we have very strict rules against colorum vehicles. So hindi hindi talaga nagiging attractive 'yon. Pero sa totoo lang, no, kung meron tayong clear policy ng carpooling, not only during crisis but even then, may makakatulong po sa ating mga commuters. So, I think yun ang pinag-aaralan mabuti ng MMDA at ng LTFRB kung paano ito hindi makakasakit sa mga legitimate franchise holders. Ibig sabihin na hindi magkakaroon ng pagkakataon mangolorum itong mga magka-carpooling.
How do you suggest that the government regulates this? Kasi, they already have to regulate the TNVS, they have to regulate, as you mentioned, all the other public utility vehicles. These are privately owned vehicles, di ba, for the carpooling system. Tapos hindi daw nila bibigyan ng franchise. How exactly do you propose legally for this to happen?
Well, I will take the cue from the General Manager's statement. Sabi niya, hindi magiging kompetisyon ng mga legitimate franchise holders. That's good, no? Hindi magiging kompetisyon. Pero ano ba yun maaring maging kompetisyon nito kapag nakukuha yung mga pasahero? Ngayon, ganito kasi, no? Tingnan lang natin, nasan ba yung mga pasahero? Yung mga pasahero ba maalwan nakakasakay ng public transport? How many minutes do they wait, no, para makasakay? Di ba? So, hindi natin pwedeng alisin yung option itong mga commuters kung maaari naman pala silang makisabay dito sa mga may sasakyan nilang kaklase or kaopisina, di ba? So, I don't see the competition there, no? Ang nakikita ko doon is option ng pasahero yon na, bakit pa ako maghihintay ng ganun katagal? Ang hirap sumakay, samantalang pwede akong makisabay dito. At maari naman, pag nakisabay ako dito, mas maalwan, makakabawas din ng oras para sa akin. So, doon sa point na yon, how can we regulate that? Yun ang isang tanong. So,
correct.
Siguro, if we could suggest, yun sinasabi na point to point dapat, kunyari, o dito meron pick up point, no? Sino yung mga pasahero at pupunta sa isang lugar. Kunyari, so mga 10 sila, sabihin nga 10 sila na living in one area. Okay, dito tayo magkita-kita, no? And then sabay-sabay tayo, papasok tayo sa ating opisina, no? Dahil isa lang naman yung pupuntahan natin opisina. And then pagdating doon, from the office back to dun sa pick-up point para makauwi na sila. So yun siguro ang gusto na yung point na yun. How can we regulate na wala silang ipipick up along the way? Yun ang mga...
Correct. Oo nga.
Yun ang
Paano?
mga mahirap dyan,
Hindi
di ba?
ko alam. Hindi ko maisip.
Yan, tama. Kasi baka naman pag ginawa natin masyadong stricto yun wala namang yan. Ito pa isa, this is very common. Okay.
Oo.
Kunyari, nakikisabay itong mga to. Mga apat na kaopisina ko. Forever na lang ba silang libre sa akin? What if instead na mamasahe sila, they will contribute for gas? Yung ba ay pangungolorum? Meron nagsasabi na kolorum yan kasi you are already giving money, parang paying. Pero hindi naman yun binayad as if it is a payment of fare.
Correct.
But contribution sa gas. How can you regulate that? Di ba? Paano ma-regulate yan? Kaya nga, kailangan, with all due respect sa MMDA, maging yung regulation natin dito. Kasi hindi naman nila gagawing hanap buhay ito. It will not be kolorum kung hindi naman nila gagawing hanap buhay ito. Hayaan natin yung mga mananakay na pumili ng mas conveniente sa kanila. No? All we need is, sabi mo, sino yung mga dapat isakay dito, saan sila pupunta, no? Parang sa eskwelahan, di ba? School service, school service. Yung school service ba nami-make up? Hindi sila nami-make up sa kalye. Meron silang specific na pasahero ng mga estudyante, di ba? And then punta sa school and then isasakay doon. Di ba? Mas madaling yun. So siguro tingnan nila yung concept ng school bus. Medyo meron silang pwedeng makuha po doon because specific yun specific yung passengers. Ngayon, yung ito yung school bus nagbabayad ng yun, pero it's okay because it's a form of public transport, di ba? Pero kakompetensya ba yun ng mga pwedeng sumakay sa jeep o bus? We did not see it as a competition because it's for the safety, convenience of our children to take the bus. The school bus.
As you mentioned,
dapat ang pananaw nila.
Sinabi po ng MMDA that this is a temporary solution. What metrics are you looking at to determine when this should be implemented, this carpooling system, and when it should be taken out and then public transport should take the floor once again? How should we know? Okay.
Well, with due respect sa MMDA, bakit niyo pa gagawin temporary yan kung makakatulong naman sa pasahero, di ba? I don't see the point na pag may crisis, mag-carpooling tayo. Bakit? Choice ng pasahero yan eh. Kung gusto ng pasahero makisabay sa kanilang ka-opisina, bakit mo naman pipigilin, di ba? Ngayon, meron din isang klaseng carpooling na, kunyari, 5 kayo, may sasakyan ko yung lahat. O sige, since may coding, okay, ako magdadrive, kayo sumabay sa akin. Tomorrow, ikaw, the next day siya. So, that's also an effective way of carpooling, di ba? Kasi, instead of 5 people driving, lang sila, isa na lang sinasakyan nila. No?
Okay.
So, kailangan, carpooling is bayanihan sa transport. It's a bayanihan transport. If we regulate too much sa carpooling, it will not be successful.
But should there be some benefits, sir, if you are carpooling? For example nga, baka pwedeng hindi ka nakasali sa number coding scheme.
Ang MMDA na po makakasagot noon kung gusto nila yung ganong, kung pwedeng ganon na may exemption na pag nag-carpool ka, exempted ka. So, I leave that to MMDA.
Okay.
Pero sa amin, ang amin lang tinitingnan dito is bakit mo i-restrict sa mga pasahero yung option nila na mas magaan para sa kanila, mas mura at konbenyente kung makikisabay sila sa kanilang mga kaopisina, kaklase o kamag-anak. Now, if we will have kumbaga, katulad ng sabi, point-to-point tayo, how can you regulate the point-to-point ng carpooling? Paano? Ha?
Medyo mahirap.
I'm sorry, but I do not know how, no? Baka meron silang ganung ganung naiisip. Pero sa amin, carpooling, wag natin gawing temporary, no? Gawin nating gawin nating permanente yan, no? Basta MMDA said, hindi magiging competition sa public transport, sa legitimate. At hindi naman magiging competition yun, no? Kung yung public transport natin, magaan sumakay. Di ba?
Correct.
Kaya nga,
Sir, what
nagiging
about other...
competition kung talagang mahirap sumakay, bakit ka naman, kunya, gigising ako ng alas 4 ng umaga para makasakay ng bus dun sa SM Fairview. No? Samantalang mayroon akong kapitbahay na doon din pupunta sa office ko, bakit hindi na lang ako sa kanya makikisabay at gigising ako ng alas 6?
Sir, what other transport solutions are you posing or proposing right now? Nakakita tayo ng iba't ibang solutions right now, band-aid solutions. For example, Mayor Isko Moreno in the city of Manila has this 1,000 minimum take-home pay for jeepneys. He put aside a fund for that. Ano pa pong magagawa sa ngayon to help also consumers, and also what's the compromise between the commuter groups and the transport groups when it comes to the fare hikes? Kasi syempre, the transport groups are complaining, diba? They need higher fares just to cover their take-home pay, and then the commuters are complaining na hindi nila kayang bayaran tong fares.
Yung pong kanina, before my turn, there was an economist that was stating this, na sabi, we must at least mabigyan natin ng mas maraming yung mga drivers, no? Yun ang ginawa ng Manila. Ang tawag po dyan is service contracting. It's not really new, no? Yung dating administrasyon nagkaroon ng service contracting yung panahon po ng pandemya. So, ano ibig sabihin nun? The government is paying para hindi na makabiyahe, no? Para bang binabayaran ng pamahalaan o sinasabi sila sa pamahalaan yung pasahe sa public transport, no? So okay yan, maganda yan, pero hanggang kailan, no? Hanggang kailan masusustain yan, di ba? Baka hindi masustain yan. So babalik tayo dun sa petition nila for provisional fare increase. So ang sinabi naman ng ating mga public transport, if the excise tax and the VAT in petroleum products will be removed, then we will no longer need yun fare increase. Yun ang ano nila.
That's interesting, yeah.
Again, bahala po si Presidente dyan dahil meron na siyang powers, no? Binigyan na siya ng Kongreso, pinag-aaralan nila yan, no? Kung maaring ma-hold yan. Pero sa tingin po ng grupo namin, inevitable po yung pagtaas ng pasahe talaga.
Okay.
No?
All right.
It will come, sabi natin, we are just delaying the inevitable. Talagang dadating yun because, hindi lang kasi yung gasolina ang titingnan natin. Spare parts, etc. Ang dami pong gastos ng public transport, hindi lang yung karga ng krudo.
All right. So tighten our belts and of course try as much as possible to be practical. Sabi nyo nga po, without too much regulation from the government, it's just a matter of being prudent and trying out carpooling services. Kung pwede pa naman gawin, why not, 'di ba? Maraming salamat po for your time and insights, Attorney Ariel Inton, founder of Lawyers for Commuter Safety and Protection. Good morning, sir. Now, don't go away. More matters to discuss after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. This This Holy Tuesday, passenger volume is expected to surge as many Filipinos head to the provinces for Holy Week, and one of the busiest areas is the Cubao bus terminal. We go live now to Mobile Journal Ray Vicente. Ray, how is the passenger traffic over there?
Dani, magandang umaga. Ilan pa rin sa ating mga kapatid ang pinili pa rin na bumiyahe dito sa Cubao Bus Terminals para nga makauwi sa kanilang probinsya ngayong Semana Santa dahil nga muli nga nagtaas ang produkto ng presyo ng petrolyo. Ay yung ilan sa ating mga kapatid talagang pinili na lang mag-commute, Dani, para makatipid din. Siyempre wala pa rin, sinususpindi pa rin nga hanggang ngayon yung fare hike increase. So papan ko lang kayo saglit, Dani, sa kasulukuyang sitwasyon. So kung makikita nyo, hindi naman ganun kapunuan yung sitwasyon dito sa pa-south na Cubao Bus Terminals. Pero ito, Dani, ay yung mga ilan sa ating mga kapatid na chance passengers kasi actually ngayon, Dani, fully booked na yung mga biyaheng pa-south, specifically mga biyaheng pa Bicol hanggang April 4, no? Pero yung mga pamunaan naman ng Cubao Bus Terminal, sinigurado naman nila na hindi naman daw mawawalan ng mga bus sa ating mga kapatid. Lalo hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin sila nagbabawas ng bus kahit nga nagtaas ngayong presyo ng produkto ng petrolyo. Pero Dani, banggitin ko lang doon kasi sa kabilang terminal ay nagbawas na ng mga bus ng 30%. Pero dito na natiling nasa normal pa rin naman daw yung bus nila kahit nga masakit daw talaga sa bulsa yung taas presyo ng produkto ng petrolyo. Kaya naman ang ginagawa talaga nila kumakapit doon nga sa pagsususpende ng free ride privilege kung sa 6 minuto bago ang departure time, doon palang bubuksan yung makina pati yung aircon ng bus, Dani.
Okay, Ray, nakausap mo ba yung mga passengers dyan whether the bus fares have remained the same? Kasi di ba we've had reports that there were 8 bus companies na increased the fare. So ngayon ba nag-stabilize na yan at wala na masyadong nagko-complain?
Actually, dito talaga sa Cubao Bus Terminals, Dani, wala naman daw talaga pagtaas ng fare or mismong tickets ng bus kasi talagang sumusunod daw sila sa patakaran o sa anunsyo ng gobyerno na hanggang wala nga nilalabas na patakaran, mananatili daw talaga yung mismong presyo ng mga tickets dito. Pero yun nga, ang sabi ng mga konduktor dito, pati yung pamunuan ng mga ibang bus terminals talagang masakit sa bulsa. Lalo, tumaas na muli ngayon, Dani, yung presyo ng petrolyo.
But regardless, marami pa ring tao are very, very excited to go home to their provinces, be with their families, and even those attending, of course, pilgrimages for this Semana Santa. Maraming salamat, Mobile Journal Ray Vicente. Meanwhile, this Holy Tuesday market activity is picking up as Filipinos prepare for Holy Week, and crowds are expected to build up in key public markets, including Quinta Market in Manila. We go now live to Mobile Journal Fatima Baduria. Fatima, how busy is the market and what are prices like there?
Actually, Dani, sa ngayon, hindi ganun karami yung tao. Pakita ko, yung paligid. So, meron lang na mga pailan-ilan na mga bumibili. Mas marami yung mga nagtitinda dito sa Quinta Market ngayon. At sa ngayon, steady pa rin yung mga presyo ng mga bilihin. Although, posible daw na magtaas talaga yung presyo ng isda ngayong Semana Santa. Pero kasi sa mga nakausap ko nga nagtitinda ng isda, ay nakadepende raw talaga sila sa pagdating ng supply. Ang inaabangan daw nila ay kung magtataas daw ng singil yung mga nagde-deliver. At yung pangalawang tinitignan nila ay kung mababawasan yung supply nila. Inaasahan daw kasi ng mga nagtitinda na bababa ang supply ng isda ngayong Semana Santa habang mas maraming nagde-deliver sa kanila yung magbabakasyon. Although natanong ko nga rin kung so far ba nagtaas ba ng singil yung mga nagde-deliver sa kanila. Sabi nila, swerte raw sila na as of now, hindi pa raw. Ang singil daw sa kanila pagdating sa isda ay 100 pesos kada isang banyera o yung lalagyan ng isda, yung parang batyano. At usually daw sa isang araw ang kinukuha nila ay nasa 4 hanggang 10 banyera. So around 400 to 1,000 pesos ang binabayad nila. At hindi pa naman daw ito nagbabago sa ngayon. So ganun pa rin daw yung presyohan nila pagdating sa isda. Ang benta nila sa tilapia 160 to 170 pesos per kilo pa rin. Ang bangus naman nasa 260 pesos, galunggong 250 pesos per kilo, ang pusit 380 per kilo, ang tipo naman ay 550 per kilo. Pagdating sa karne, ganun pa rin yung pork, yung laman ay 360, ang baka naman 510 pesos per kilo, ang manok na buo ay 210 pesos per kilo pa rin. At yung bigas, ganun pa rin, no, nitong mga nakaraang linggo, naglalaro sa 48 pesos yung pinakamura. Tapos yung mga imported, yung mga well-milled ay nasa 58 to 70 pesos per kilo. So ganun pa rin, pati yung mga gulay, ganun pa rin ang presyo dito, Dani.
Thank you so much for that update, Mobile Journal Fatima Baduria. And now we head on over to Baclaran Church over in Parañaque. Mobile Journal Daniel Dayaw is on the ground. Daniel, marami na bang nagsisimba dyan? Today is Tuesday.
Yes, good morning, Dani. We're live here in Baclaran, Parañaque. And as you can see from behind me, our kapatids are currently quietly observing their faith this Holy Tuesday, this Holy Week. So the Mass started early here at 6:45 a.m. Although wala pang Mass ngayon, it's scheduled to continue 9:45 a.m. and then later 5:30 p.m. So tatlo pa lang ang nakaschedule. And as you can tell sa likod ko, regular devotees pa lang ang nandito. But I actually talked to the Baclaran Church Rector, Father John, and he told me that devotees are expected to flock tomorrow, Wednesday, because of ito ang first month or first day of the month. And the second, Baclaran is known for every Wednesdays on their Novena Mass, no? And aside from that, Danny, one of the identities of Baclaran Church talaga is the sacrament of confession. And yesterday, they opened 4 boxes of confession boxes. And continuous yun, may mga pari na naka-duty daw. And it's scheduled 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. later afternoon. And going back to what I mentioned you about the activities, of course, there's a lot of lined up activities for Baclaran Church. But on Friday, they have the live Station of the Cross reenacted by the youth. So yun ang inaabangan na ilang mga deboto natin. Pero expected na i-announce pa ang ruta dito. And of course, for the security of the devotees with the relevant agencies such as PNPs and LGUs. Danny.
All right. Any update on the security right now or mga paalala ng management to the devotees?
Yes, Danny. Actually, we have here security flocking dito, medyo hindi, okay, ayan, pakita ko lang sa'yo, i-walkthrough ko lang na may mga merong mga nagra-rounds dito na police, PNP, and of course, meron din security yung church dito. But of course, Danny, itong Baclaran is, aside from meron silang security, they always remind the people to always be vigilant and be careful sa kanilang mga gamit. And as for the mga bawal na simbahan, it's the proper etiquette naman daw. Of course, bawal yung cap and the revealing clothes. Danny.
Thank you for that, mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we have given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Dani Laurel. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.